my current balance is 2,000. I could withdraw up to 50% of my account balance. Once you hit 30 trading days or 20 days, you can withdraw as much money as you want.
You want to make me co-host?
Absolutely. Make co-host. Make co-host. And if I can find Stacy, I can make Stacy co-host as well.
Hola familia. Hello family.
Hola, hola.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How is everyone today?
Good to hear.
Good,
Tell us
good.
where you're watching from. Say hello
Madrid?
in the chat.
Where? Chat. Good morning, good morning. Rhode Island. Somebody I see here. West Virginia. Awesome.
iPhone 830. Can you please click on the three dots, hover over your box and click on the three dots and change it to your name? Thank you.
All right. Got a pretty full house already. That's great. Hot, hot, hot Nevada. Wow. It's got to be hot if you got 3 of them.
Yeah.
It's been sweltering here in Belize. So like, I don't know, 110, 115 with the humidity, 41 degrees Celsius with the humidity. It rained 2 days ago for the first time, or for the like a heavy rain for the first time in 5 months, 4 months, I think. It's only kind of lightly rained here 3 times in the last 3 months. So we're looking forward to hopefully towards the end of the week getting some, putting an end to this drought. It's nice when you're visiting, but you need rain. We finally have sun here in France. We had all your rain, yeah. I'm sure you did.
We've got a couple people listed as iPhone and a Zoom user. Please hover over your box and click the three dots and change it to your name. I don't want to boot anybody.
All right, so we are recording already. Finally made sure we got that one out of the way. I see Stacy's face now. Maybe I can make her co-host as well. There we go. Oh, maybe, I don't know if it only allows one co-host or not. We'll try. If not, I'll give it back to Sheila. I think you're both co-hosts, right? Sheila co-host, Stacy co-host. Perfect. Great. That works.
The expert triumvirate.
Sorry, say that again.
The experts triumvirate. Triumvirate. Whatever.
I'm not sure what that was. Sorry. I don't know if I got a bad connection.
That was a joke.
Oh. Just kidding. Okay, Stacy's co-host. Everybody's good. We're there, and I'll pull this out. And I'll put this over here.
Okay.
Okay. Looks like as co-host, are you two able to admit people to the do you see
Yeah.
admit? Okay. I see a couple people waiting. All right, if you guys with the names as iPhone can't change your names, we're going to, or Zoom user or anything like that, we'll have to figure that out for you because we won't be able to address any of your concerns, and that'll suck if you're if you have a good question. So that said, I think we should get going here. We're already 5.5 minutes in.
I'll just give those instructions again. All you have to do is hover over the box that has your Zoom user or iPhone name in it. It might be a black box with just the name. And then in the upper right-hand corner, click on the 3 dots, and then it will allow you at the bottom, it says rename. So just click on that, and then you can put your name in.
Yeah.
Ready, Jay?
All right. So welcome everybody. Stacy brought something to my attention, which was awesome too, that about for the housekeeping. So just to let you guys know that we are going to consistently be adding resources, but don't want you to get overwhelmed. So make sure that you take it in stride and don't feel like any of the educational stuff in there and stuff that we're adding is something that you have to get done in order to make it to the next call or anything. These are things you can work on at your own time, and we are here to support. So please, don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm gonna turn off some extensions here. Yeah, so we are here to support, so definitely don't feel like you can't pause and ask for questions or ask for direction. It seems like you've all been doing that and you're all aware of that, so that's great. The other thing is that Stacy brought up too was another one. Stace, did you want to talk on the homework thing? No? Okay. So you guys have been incredibly participant, I guess, in the homework, which is amazing because it's definitely, I hesitate to say that it's optional, but it is optional. I want you guys to not feel like you have to do it, but I do want to stress the value you will get from it if you partake, right? So while it's not going to be, the be all end all, it won't stop you from moving forward in terms of what we offer and going to the next thing in terms of courses or whatnot. But it's absolutely going to help. I wouldn't put the effort into it, into given these kinds of things if I didn't feel there was value there that would actually help you to be able to move the needle, right, so to speak. I think that was it for me. Did you have any oh, the Etsy Quick Start Guide. So if you guys haven't noticed in the training section, there's the Etsy Quick Start Guide is in there now. It's only up to part 3 so far. I'm adding part 4 today, and we'll be dropping in part 5 tomorrow. Or no, part 3 today, part 4 tomorrow, and part 5 Sunday or Monday. So that'll be all done. We do have a ton of mock-ups. I think there's 8 color charts and 6 size charts ready to go. So we'll be dropping that stuff in also today. Yeah, and Sheila, did you have you had some housekeeping you wanted to take care of too?
Yep, I've got a whole list, but I'll go fast.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just want to thank all of you for being so awesome in the community. Your support of other members and the team has been absolutely amazing, and we love your feedback and suggestions. I want to call out a few of those helpful members. Carla Murphy for her supportive messages, Brian Waldron, Karen Fleener Gould, Amy Willard, and Carrie Buziak for their help and encouragement in the design homework threads, and Lisa Hinshaw for her great social media tips. Speaking of the homework threads, Jay mentioned them already, but the participation has been awesome, and just be sure to check in there. Go in there and look because there's so many great design tips from everyone, and you can see iterations of how people are changing their design as they're going along. It's really good, and there's a lot of super helpful tips there. Real quick, many of you are using Heartbeat on mobile, and I just wanted to let you know that the Heartbeat team is rolling out a helpful update soon. And please start using the 9 hashtags that we put up. We, when posting, hardly anyone is doing it, and we'd love for you to do that to help keep it organized as we go forward. Because the more messages we have, the more helpful the hashtags will end up being. Jay said that the Etsy Quick Start Guide is being dropped, and that's going to be in the training section in Heartbeat. And then just to let you know what's coming soon, the size charts and color charts for t-shirts, crew necks, and hoodies will be released later this week. And to let you know what we're working hard on is the roadmap, which is going to tell you exactly where to focus your time. And believe me, you are going to love it. And then, yeah, that's it, I guess. We're going to keep adding resources, so don't get overwhelmed and just work at your own pace. That's really, I hope you're loving it as much as we are loving helping you.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Right on. Okay, so I am going to start the presentation here. Present. All right. Confirm speaking language. Cancel. English. Zoom's asking me some weird questions. Confirm my speaking language. Do I mumble that bad? Wow, I've been told, but okay. So let's share screen here and get right into today. We got a lot to cover. So let me know if you guys can see this. It's about Jay. I'm just gonna skip this slide because you guys already know most of this stuff. So today is an introduction to typography. It's a crucial part of graphic design and everything we do. A lot of the times you'll see a lot of mistakes, and we'll go through a lot of that stuff too. But at the end of the day, whenever you're creating something for print on demand, there's always going to be the consumer that will, ultimately consume and purchase illustration only, like design, like patterns or any kind of like illustration element, or imagery. But typography is something that will always sell. You'll always be able to sell just words on a shirt, words on a mug, words on a poster, so it's a crucial element that a lot of people overlook, at least overlook its importance anyway. So just going to get into what our agenda is today. It's going to explain what typography is, why it matters, basics, typographic terms, some tips for choosing fonts, including font pairings and stuff like that. I know that was a big question that people were asking about. We're going to look at some practical design tips and how to apply them. We're going to look at some examples of good and bad use of typography and making sure that it matches the product. Then I'm going to give you some homework. Again, it is optional, not mandatory, but I think everybody will get some value from it. I'll try to make things in terms of assignments or homework that will apply to everybody, no matter where you are in your journey. And of course, we'll have some Q&A, and then we'll go right into another round of hot seat design analysis there. So what is typography? Typography is the art and technique of arranging type to make written language legible, readable, and visually appealing. And this is just really ultimately fancy talk for saying arranging text in a way that looks nice or pretty, right? Easy on the eyes. So a couple examples here that you can see, like Niagara Falls. It's using elements of the Niagara region there, and it kind of looks like it's falling over the falls. Something a little unique here. It's filling the space that makes sense for this particular design. And you've got your sans serif fonts here that we'll get into in a minute that are clean, elegant, and expressive. So just adding some visuals here to get you off to a start, because typography for some can be a dry topic. I love type. I'm a typographic nerd that way. So, I mean, I don't need imagery to get excited about it, but I did add some so you can see right away here. So the importance of typography is, probably one of the most underrated things here. So it's one of the most important parts of graphic design, as I mentioned. It can convey a message and evoke emotions, and it can also absolutely kill and destroy a design. I just want to take your attention to image number 2 here. We've got Sister, Sister, Sister. This was titled as a softball sister, right? So you've got the, the imagery of the lightning bolt here, she's looking fierce. She's like, ready to root and, go kick some ass. Looking like she's going to support her sister here, right? She's all, fired up and ready to go. I think it's a great example. The mock-up complements the design, and the design, that lightning bolt kind of, signifies like you're going to bring the thunder, you're going to bring the noise, right? And sister is still visible. It's obvious that it says sister 3 times. This one, on the other hand, I don't know what the thought process is here, but oftentimes less is more. You can see that with this one right here. You got an element there, but it doesn't kill the design. This, I'm guessing, says sister, 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 but you can see here that, it's just overdone. There's too much going on, all kinds of elements, there's all kinds of outlines. On top of that, it's a gritty font, and they added another font that kind of competes for attention. So the only word you can visibly see here is softball. And even then, it's distracted. You're being distracted. Your eye is from everything that's going on because of everything that's going on here. You don't need so many seams. You don't need all that stuff, but I don't have to explain to you why this is, hard to read. You can see that already. Another option of what not to do is when we look at balance can be done with textures. It can be done with colors, and it can be done with actual weighting of elements, right? Size. So you've got brother and biggest on this shirt. If somebody's colorblind or you're, more than 15 or 20 feet away, it's going to be super hard to see what this says, right? And if you're going to use colors like this, you would want to have it on a white background or a light background that, you can combine, that you'll be able to see, or have a white outline around it. But brother, in this indigo or maroon font, just totally does not look the part. It's hard to read, too much going on. Little brother, biggest fan, even the words don't necessarily make sense as you would read them. You wouldn't read little brother, comma, biggest fan. Like, you know what I mean? They don't really make sense. And then you look at something, sometimes, like I said, less is more. Using a collegiate standard font that you would have seen on any sports team out there, at some point, the colleges, the universities, the scholastic stuff. Softball brother tells you exactly what it is, looks clean. It, they shape the text here. You only got 2 words and the thread of the baseball or softball. That's it. And it looks great. You can tell exactly what it is. They shaped it to match the curves. And if anything, I may have even only put it on a white shirt, so it looks like the actual leather of the baseball. But I know they do have, the fluorescent softballs as well for, I guess, so you could hopefully see it coming a little faster if it's coming at you. But so that's an example there of some good design that I wanted to draw attention
Jay?
to. Yeah.
Lisa's asking, when using a distressed font, should both fonts be distressed? I think she was referring to that first softball, or sister, sister, sister with the bow.
When using a distressed font, should both fonts be distressed?
Right.
Depends. So I tend to use less fonts that are distressed and then distress the whole design. That's distressing a design is something that you're going to want to do as opposed to just the font, right? Like you can see in this lightning bolt here, there's some distressing. It's hard to see here, but there is some distressing in the lightning bolt itself, not just on the font here, which there is on the font as well. It depends. If you're using the same font and they're both distressed, then sure, like you're using, but if you have 2, they'll probably end up competing unless the entire design is distressed that way. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah. You can see the difference in impact and appeal. It can also create unique brand identity. So this here is what not to do. It's muddy colors. This is a perfect example of what you're asking. So we've got this has a distressing on it, and this had a distressing on it. If they did anyway, it looks like it might just be the whole design here. But when you have a nice bold font and then you have 2 fonts like this that are fighting for attention, it creates kind of, a blending, almost muddy view or visual, and your eye doesn't know what to look at. Right away you see life, but then you're drawn to the coffee cup, and then you're kind of drawn into this muddiness here. And these are 3, these 2 fonts they're hard to make out with the color contrast here. And then you've got all these weird, it says coffee helps, life happens, coffee helps. Really hard to make out, right? So if you were, at a distance and you saw that on somebody's shirt, you'd be totally confused as to what you're looking at, right? Conversely, now, if you make this really small into a thumbnail that you're shopping for, it's going to be ultra hard to understand and make out. These are the kinds of things that you're going to click on the listing to blow it up to see what it is, realize that you don't really like the design and not check out, right? So your that tells the algorithm, if nobody's checking out, to stop showing your design in search results for life happens, coffee helps searches or coffee t-shirt design searches, right? And then the worst killer on top of that is if you're paying for ads to advertise this listing and people can't make it out. So now they're clicking on that to lower your conversion rate by not actually checking out, but you've also paid for them to click that to not check out, right? And then here's another one right beside it. And they could have even added a little brown in the coffee bean here, but life happens, coffee helps. This would look great on a mug. It could look good on a throw pillow in a coffee shop if there was a couch section. It could look good on a great poster in an office, and it looks great on a t-shirt. And you can tell immediately what this says. They're sticking to two fonts. They're not competing. And they've done it in a way almost grammatically. Like, so you've got life and then happens. So you've got the noun and then the verb, the noun and then the verb. And it's just like boom, 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 stacked. You can see it. Your eye is drawn logically through the design, and there's no confusion. Super high contrast, black and white. You don't need crazy colors. You don't need crazy fonts. And they got a couple of little flourishes here to add to it, but it's not overdone, right? You're not confused when you see it. You can see it instantly. This is something you'll be able to see, even if it was small on the top left, chest of print, you'd probably still be able to read that from 5 or 6 feet away, which is amazing. And then, of course, you've got unique brand identity. You guys Billabong's been around for 50 years or so, maybe longer. They've had the iconic kind of 70s font that I know Tommy would be into, looking at his tie-dye shirt there. But the Billabong thing is, very iconic, right? It's got that 70s kind of vibe. And they've gone and made a little bit of a spin on it now, and they're doing state-specific designs, right? With their, Billabong looking stuff here. So that's been very boho, very organic, very surf, 50s style stuff. And there's no mistake you're looking at a Billabong shirt when you're looking at one, right? You don't have to read it to know what you're looking at. So some basic typographic terms and concepts here. So there's a few more, but I wanted to break this down, and I could go on for days on describing this stuff, but I wanted to break it down into the 4 most popular that you'll see for, design, especially in the print on demand space, and just a couple of descriptions on these. So a serif font, you've all heard of serif and sans serif. You may or may not already know what they are, but a serif are just these little tails here on the letter. And a sans serif, you can see there's no tail. That's it. That's the defining, line between a serif and sans serif. And sans just means, if you know French at all, it just means without. So you got a serif or without serif. This is a Times New Roman, and this is Futura. So with a serif font, you've got, it evokes the feelings of, the traditional design, classic, always timeless. It's traditionally what you would have seen in any printed book, and probably still some magazines prior to like 1990 and earlier, right? The bold, modern, and minimalist look of the sans serif font, it has been way more popular in the last few years, or the last 20 or 30 years, I should say. It is the most readable, and not to be, confused with legibility. Legibility is being able to discern one letter from another, but readability is how easily digestible, right, a piece of text is. So we also have script fonts, and these are, more for elegance. They're luxurious and they're vintage, right? You can think back to, all the forefathers, founding fathers that, stateside, it's always like, it dates back to making what was once written with fountain pens and ink with a feather end to a fountain pen. Script fonts dates back to trying to emulate that kind of look. So that said, they look great on, wedding invitations as an element, something, formal, right? and you definitely don't want to overuse this stuff. And you can think to like whiskey bottles and stuff. There's a lot of scripting. And then we have the display fonts. So they're more decorative. They can allude to a period, and they're definitely more fun and can be crazy wild sometimes. And by period, I mean, so the funny bubbly fonts that a few of you have actually submitted designs with, that evoke that 70s kind of look that Canva was all over Canva. The wavy fonts of a lot of them were in my era, whatever. It's a throwback to that 70s kind of thing with that bubbly font. You've got this here that almost looks like it could be disco, right? So just by looking at a font, you can get a feeling or a vibe from it, right? So those are display fonts, and these two are not to be overused. They're to be used sparingly. So basic typographic terms and concepts. So you got traffic, kerning, and leading. There's so much more, but these are the three basics that I think are, probably the ones that have the most value here. So when it comes to tracking, we're talking about the overall spacing between characters in a block of text. So that's in a word or in a line of text, right? So this is an example of having no space at all, but it's uniformly the same amount of space in between. And then you've got a whack load of space, but they're uniform amounts of space in between. Kerning, on the other hand, is the space that is defined in between each character. So you can have, no space, a little bit more. This is what you would typically see like when you're reading something, and you can have some giant gaps. There are reasons for using kerning, but I just wanted to, let you guys know that the difference between tracking and kerning. And then the third one is leading, and it's called leading. I'll explain in the next slide, but the term comes from back when typesetting was done by hand. And I actually know a few people who, when I was working at the publishing company in Canada, who had started that way before they retired when I was there. It refers to the vertical space between the lines of text. And it's called leading because these right here are slugs, also known as leads. Literally, it's not leading, it's leading, because you can see here they're putting the piece of lead in between rows of type that is to be printed on a press to create the gaps. So back in the day, typesetting was done by hand on old printing presses, and the term refers to the actual lead bars used to separate lines of type. So this all plays into the readability, because if you didn't have them, it would be squished, much more difficult on the eyes to read. All right, next we're into hierarchy and readability. So visual hierarchy. So using different font sizes, weights, and styles will help establish a visual hierarchy. It helps us to identify the most important elements in the text in a design, and gives us visual cues as to where to look and read first. So this is an example here. I purposely did it this way. So you've got hierarchy here. You got nice, big, and bold. Your eye is drawn to it. Then you're kind of drawn to the ampersand here with a pop of color. And then the readability, on the word readability, your eye just kind of flows, right? So you've got this, it kind of comes down here, and then you're reading as it flows. And then visual hierarchy also draws your eye next. So if this was big and bold or super distressed, like the readability font here, you might be drawn to it ahead of time, but because it still stands out over this, you're drawn here next, right? And then the next one, as we logically are taught to go from left to right, you can read here and down here, and then readability. Readability is not the same as legibility, like I was saying. Legibility is how you can distinguish a letter from another. Readability is how easily the text is to literally read and digest. So any questions so far? I know it's a lot to digest, but please hit it up. All right, good.
Letting you know we're coming up on the half hour.
Yeah, so move it. Shut up, Jay. So hierarchy readability. So readability with print on demand is super important. You can talk, you can see the ideas here. It needs to be clear from a distance. So while we were printing, we always had this thing where as sellers, we always look and overanalyze our samples, right? We're always looking at them. We're always looking up close. Oh my God, the fibers are sticking up. Oh my God, this looks like terrible. I could never sell it, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not about you. It's about your customer. When we were printing, that said, hold up the shirt, get somebody in the office or stand in front of a mirror 5-6 feet away from the mirror and look at the shirt. Does it look good? That's as close as somebody's probably going to be without being in their personal space. And that'll tell you, if the quality of the print is good enough. And this is exactly what I was talking about before. So the readability of your design on a mock-up can make or break. And while you might be able to get away with a smaller, more crowded design on a mug, you know, if it's on a mock-up and it's squished, that mock-up will still have to be zoomed in, otherwise you're wasting the clicks, right? So, tips for choosing fonts. So on a child's shirt, for example, you're going to want to use playful fonts that make you smile. You got sweet, sassy, and 3. The way the word sassy, you know, has that pop of color and a little bit different S in here, there's a couple of them there, it kind of plays on the word sass. So it's the word sassy itself is a little more sassy than sweet and 3. Sweet looks, you know, kind of sweet. They got a little, whatever, a little daisy or something in there. Sassy looks like it has more sass to it. And the image, the mock-up it's on, totally fits this. If you didn't get that it was sweet, sassy, and 3, this absolutely looks like she could be, you know, a sweet, sassy 3-year-old, right? So it's a perfect package. Like I say, the design has to be great, but the packaging, the way you're showing it off, the mock-up also has to work. So pillows. So here's a design example of what could work. I would have probably done this white or something instead. Stop doubting yourself. It's big and bold. It works. I would probably have brought it in from the edges a bit because it will wrap around. But this looks like, you know, a low contrast t-shirt design with too many fonts, hard to read. You've got a distressed font that they put a white outline on, which makes it even more difficult to read, as opposed to just making this white on the black background. Would have been so much easier to read. And then, you know, you got your browns, your muds, and I understand because it's coffee colored. I think that was probably where they went that way. But it's really hard to read. Contrast is not there, and there's too many fonts, right? And then you run, you know, when you just slap a t-shirt design on a pillow, you're now curving under and it's running around and it just doesn't look good at all. A couple more options here. So like I was saying with the script fonts, right? So you're going to want to use more elegant and sophisticated fonts for wedding invitations, but you want to make sure to pair them properly for maximum readability. So they look great, but if you were to use a script font, for example, in a paragraph, it would be almost impossible to read without like significant spacing, right? It just doesn't look like something you'd want to spend 20 minutes reading a paragraph or a couple of pages in a book on, right? So here it's used properly in terms of what, you know, the elegance, because you're drawing attention to it. It's flowing. And I know a few of you had mentioned you were into digital design. So that's why we got this example here, the digital downloads. And then it's paired with a font that does not fight it for attention. It's clean, simple, high contrast. All the pertinent information should always be completely and easily digestible at a glance. And then, you know, you got reception to follow down here. I may have done something to pull it up and out of in front of this watercolor leaf, so it's a little easier to read, but it also is a word that does not need a lot of attention drawn to it because it's not important. So you've got the hierarchy here. So what are we looking at? We're looking at Marianne and Stephen. They are the, you know, the focus, right? Like you would at a wedding for that day, you're focusing on the couple. Kindly join us, whatever, you've got the pertinence and nice, clear, easy to read. The fonts work well together. There's no, you know, conflicting with textures and stuff, right? Here's a good couple of examples on apparel. So you've got only 2 fonts, right? So you're gonna want to stick to 2 fonts, 2 colors, not more than that, for the most part with text design anyway. So this, just a small town, girl. Just a small and town are the same font, looks great together because it's the same font. They're just, you know, they're using the space effectively. They've got girl here. I may have increased the white border around the L on girl to stand out a little more, but you can tell, you know, it looks like they took the time to kind of have their spacing here. You've got that readability, your eye is drawn to how it flows, and they accented it to give it a little bit more balance with the heart element here. You got Strawberry Fields Forever, obviously copyrighted. Don't do that, but you know, perfect example. This is all text except for 4 little leaves up here that are easily hand drawn if you have 0 talent in your bones at all, right? Strawberry Fields Forever. All they did was bend some text in the shape of a strawberry, and it's brilliant. Looks great. High enough contrast, especially on the white. You know it's being marketed properly. Easy to read. So here's some choices for font pairings. You can almost always pair a bold sans serif with a script font. So we've got, you know, a bold sans serif here. This is kind of my pairing of choice. So we've got same font family over here though. So you can always pair the same font family. It looks like two different fonts, but they're the same. They're the same font. They're just one's bolder and one's regular. You never want to pair script fonts that are too similar, or any fonts that are too similar, especially if it's a serif or a script, because now you're looking at these, they look similar, but they're different. You know, your eye's drawn to an eye, they look a little different. Something's not right. It doesn't feel good. You've got, you know, a little bit more texture in this font than you do in this one, and they end up competing. It kills the hierarchy there, so you don't know what the important parts are and where you should look. But again, I like to complement. You can complement with color. You can even overlap a little bit. And when you're doing script fonts, a golden rule for me that I think everybody should do is have it go on an angle, right? The only time we ever had script fonts when we were learning in school that went totally horizontal was when we were learning on line paper, right? Whenever you write, you're not writing on a straight line. Nobody uses line paper anymore, but you're kind of freehanding, and this feels way more natural than trying to do, an italicized script and stay on a straight line. It just doesn't feel natural, right? Font pairing, colors, and shapes. So this would be an example of, a couple of pairings here. So let me know in the chat which ones you guys like best. But this is using what a lot of people will do is use a font pairing. Okay, great. So we got our sans serif and our fun ornamental font. Great. That is what 70% of people you're competing against are going to do. The other 30% is where you want to be. Draw attention to different words. Sunshine makes sense. Yellow, hello, it's a fun color, right? It kind of reminiscent of like, the teal or the aquamarine. You've got the skies, the oceans kind of thing. This is way better than this already. And now we've added a little bit of manipulating. So this is cool too. But then I'm seeing a little bit of a gap in, some spacing here that I wasn't sure about. So we just did one that, fills the gap. So you've got spacing elements here that are consistent throughout, and it kind of looks a lot more polished. So there's no wrong answer here. C and D could be your favorite. Yeah, I see some C's as well. These are just things that I think that if you are going to be in this 30% category, being over here or over here is going to put you, in that 15 percentile as opposed to the rest of the 85% or the 70% who are just using a font as it was designed. So font pairings, this one I just want to throw in there. It's in Creative Fabrica. It's called GemC. I'm not trying to affiliate or anything for them here, but in terms of paid membership, there is only $3.99 a month for unlimited downloads. So if you have to go paid, there is that. But I would send you to Google Fonts. Not a lot of people know that they're out there. It's free, and they have I think 99.9 of them. I don't think I've ever seen one that isn't available free for use for commercial purposes as well. And then there's a lot of places, for free downloads as well. But those other ones that are free, you're definitely going to want to check copyright licenses, because some of them say that they need attribution, right? Like kind of the Kittle on the free program for the design, you need attribution. So you're gonna have to put it in your description or somewhere where you got the font. So moving through here. So we got some design tips, some do's. Good contrast, balanced spacing, appropriate font choices. So you've got, look at the font here. It looks Westerny. It's got good contrast. So we're not talking white on black or black on white here. But when you're thinking Western, jeans or denim, it makes sense, right? You've got a little bit of grit there, and you're on the background that is the sandy, or, could allude to the dirt that you're, if you're riding horses or in the ring or whatever. I'm not sure. It's a pen. You guys, Stacy will probably know, cringing at me right now. But and then appropriate imagery. You've got, what would this be like if it was a pair of motorcycle boots? Not the same, right? A pair of military boots, completely not the same, right? So cowboy boots in there speaks volumes. All it says is step into the wild and true grit. True grit could be with a different font and a different background, and a pair of motorcycle boots that could be gritty too. But in this case, it's Western looking. You've got the vibe, the corral fence, and then the boots that make sense. Life unbridled, so alluding to a thin life, but it's also a play on words because it's the horse's bridle. So when you're a horse and you don't have the bridle, it's ultimately saying you're wild and free, right? So you also want to make sure that you check your design on a mock-up to make sure that it looks right in the image. Sometimes it may look great on screen, but then certain colors you try to go through, it just won't look good. You have to see how it spaces and how it fits. And there's a few places like that where I would suggest using the smart mockup, so you can use Placeit. I think they have a few free options, and then of course there's Kittl as well. Otherwise, you can probably get some paid ones for sure. And make sure your type suits the product that will be printed on. And Sheila mentioned that I had mentioned this to her before, but thin type on a tote, for example, is a no-no because the consistency of the fabric, right? So you always want to design for the substrate, and that the substrate is fancy for saying the I guess the textile you're printing on. So with a canvas tote, the way it's tight woven, you guys know there's no stretch on those, right? They're tightly woven. You can pour water on it and it'll often sit on there before it kind of gets absorbed for a while. The same thing happens when you try to print on it. So for your merch by Amazon or for your Etsy, if you're doing thin designs on that, they may not look awesome. Ink tends to pool on tightly woven stuff. So you're going to want to make sure that it doesn't pool or bubble. And not everybody prints, I guess, with the care that a smaller printer would. So when you're doing high volume stuff and your ink is just kind of sitting on it, it could shift, it could move, and it won't look as awesome. So always make sure you're designing specifically for the particular platform. So this was one of the designs right in Kittl, and I changed like one of the two of the words here. And I want to make sure that we say that just because a design is on a, a template that is on a program like Kittl doesn't mean it's good, right? So these are user submitted designs, but the big don'ts here: don't use several fonts in one design. Okay, you've got a whole bunch here that are fighting for each other, like we talked about in the 4 different kinds. You've got the ornamental and the script; they're totally fighting for each other. And then the worst thing you can do is make it, low contrast and turn it on its side. Becomes even more difficult to read. If you know what the word says and you can get past the first 3 letters, you probably know what you're looking at. But if you don't know what the word says, now you're like, well, what is it supposed to say, right? The poor color contrast gets really muddy, especially when you're printing. If you're doing anything on, the heather colors, it's going to end up really hard to read. Decorative scripts or scripts for large blocks of text. Another don't. Don't do large blocks of text with scripts that are used to be like for title cases or to draw your attention, like in the to the names in the wedding invitations we saw. And please, for the love of everybody out there, every designer out there, please do not use caps for decorative fonts. So you've got thanks here. I see this all the time. These are intended to touch. I see people doing weird things with spacing. These are throwbacks and trying to make you think of your cursive, your handwriting, right? They're intended to touch. As soon as you put spacing here, it looks super weird. Think of if you were writing cursive, you wouldn't write them like a letter space, right? It makes no sense visually. And then, I don't know which one's worse really, but they're both pretty terrible that I see happen all the time, is all caps for ornamental fonts. They're meant to be accent letters. They're meant to draw your attention. Like, go back to the medieval books, right? They had that one big ornamental letter, and then it went into your standard type. It was to draw your eye there. When you have stuff like this, it all fights for each other. It's not what you do here. So you would always want to, if you're doing that, never have all caps. So I'm going to try to rip through the rest. Font choice matters, right? So if you saw this on a Valentine's gift on your desktop, funny memes I've seen before, but they stuck with me. You'll always be mine. Get it? Got a heart. If you saw this sitting on your front door with a tack on it or something, you'll always be mine. Looks like it's scrawled in blood. These two people are going to have very different reactions, right? When they read this, and I will be waiting for you. Okay. If you saw this on your door as well or something, and then you saw, I will be waiting for you, all bubbly in hearts on a counter or a note on a table left for you by a partner or a secret admirer. These two people here, whoever the intended person is, they're going to have very different nights, right? They're going to have very different evenings, right? Based on what we're looking at here. So this is what I mean. They say the exact same thing. Font choice alone can completely change the vibe and emotion in a design. So your homework for this exercise is to choose a pair of fonts like the two versions and make two versions of Hello Summer. I wrote summer, but it's going to be Hello Sunshine. Sorry about summer there, typo, my fault. The rules is that you must use the same pair of fonts for both. So in this case, I've used the same fonts in both designs and use only text. This is going to be tough for some of you who love to throw a bunch of stuff in your design, but the goal is to nail how to use text effectively to convey different messages and have completely different looks. Both of these designs look like I think they could sell, but they also are only text and they're both the exact same fonts. So this is one exercise that I'm hoping to see dropped. I'm hoping to see pretty active. You can pick the fonts, you can pick the colors, you can do whatever you want to them, but that is all you're allowed to do is use the same two fonts for both designs and only text. That's pretty much it there. So I'll stop the share on this one. Let me know if we have any questions before we jump into hot seat here. I know we're cutting it close for time, but
Yeah, we do. Do you want to answer them now or just jump into hot seat and I'll collect them and we can answer them later? What would you prefer?
let's did I pull these up? Yeah, okay. Sorry, just figuring out something here. Let's hit some questions, I guess, now, and we'll hit a couple of quick ones and then we'll do the
Okay.
hot seat, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just scrolling here. Tommy asked, I understand pairing no more than two fonts typically. What
Mhm.
about font weights? Can I use a serif and a script? Can I use multiple weights of the serif and still keep the script?
If you're only using 2 words, sure. If you're using a paragraph or more than 3 to 5 words, if you're using more than 5 words, definitely not. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Will you be sharing the slide deck?
What slide? Oh, I can do that. Yeah, for sure. I can put that, make it a PDF and we'll put it in there. I'll convert it so that it's printable too, if you want to keep that.
Okay.
I can definitely do that.
Saying that they released at like 8 a.m.
The True Grit design, would you print that with a cream background, like the whole thing as a square design? Perul is asking.
I'm not sure.
Mm.
I'm not sure the question. So you're asking if I would put it on a like as is? I don't know. I'm not sure I understand the question. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to, show that as an example of good design, right? So I would probably see that on a sand colored sweatshirt, I guess, is if that answers the question.
Okay, and then someone asked about that True Grit, and isn't that a movie? So it would be copyrighted.
Oh yeah, definitely don't go out and make a bunch of True Grit shirts or anything that you see here without checking your trademarks and copyright, right? Like you guys should know that. Definitely do
Yeah, he
that.
was just pulling design examples.
Yep.
Let's see.
That said, and I'm not a lawyer, so definitely don't take this as, legal law verbatim or anything, but definitely source a trademark or IP attorney if you're going to do that. But if it's used as part of a design, typically words that are trademarked, you're allowed to use them as it's defined as ornamental on a shirt. But that does not mean that they still won't come after you, and then you'll have to, prove that you're allowed to use it in court. So just to let you know, technically you should be able to use it, but it's going to end up being your wallet against theirs ultimately just to show up. So,
And what's your favorite font?
oh man, I have a few. I've been using Futura, you guys. If you didn't notice, I like the clean lines of it. It's also what my Jay's Way logo is made out of, and what I have a bit of in the presentations. I also like Miserably Lose. I like some handwritten type looking fonts. Stuff that looks like it could be handwritten, but not the same. So where you can have variations between letters. So if you wrote like totally the two L's in it would be slightly different. I like things that look like more organic that way. But yeah.
Okay,
All
we're
right.
good for now.
Okay, awesome. We will hit a mail. All right, so hot seat review. I'm gonna share my screen over here. Where are you? Zoom, share screen. Desktop 2. Yes, share.
Can see it.
Perfect. Just gotta make this a little smaller here. All right, so this is Tony's design. Thank you to everybody who submitted. You know, it takes a bit of guts and courage to put yourself kind of out there like this. So he says dark academia, goth t-shirt, bookish poetry, typewriter, weirdcore, obscure, whimsigoth, got a couple of literary and gothic, dark academia. I actually had to look up dark academia goth. And it's ultimately just an aesthetic for bibliophiles, really, that's darker, and it's kind of cool, right? It's kind of like underground. The niche is dark academia and bookish, so book readers, book talk followers, which is a thing on TikTok, I think, unless it's its own platform. Created on Etsy February 9th, no sales to date. Design is for a tee, darker colors, black, dark gray, and green. So I'm looking at this here. I think the fonts are what's keeping you, like the way your typeset here is keeping you from making sales on this. So the imagery is cool. Definitely hits the dark academia kind of theme. You've got the typewriter vibe, the old school vibe, and it's dark, even though it's like got some, pretty elements like the butterflies and stuff. When you curve something with the large side of the curve facing away, it's not inclusive, right? So you'd want to kind of surround the word. So I would use something like pursue up here. If you're going to, let's just make this smaller so we fit. We could have pursue here. And then I would either make, why can't I grab this? Here we go. You can either make this curve, right, to kind of wrap the image here, or you could have it over top here, and I would probably, make it a little smaller here, and then make this a little bigger. And we'll bring this to the front, and then I would Command C and Command V to paste. I don't know where that went now. It's doing weird things on the Zoom call here for some reason. So we would do that. I would send that backwards, make it maybe black. Send it behind. Don't know why it's doing that now, making a liar out of me. It doesn't like the zoom. So we'll put you in behind. And then effects, I would probably do something like this, where you can have the block shadow. We would make it black. No, we'll make it white so you can see it. The offset, I would make it 0. And where are we here? The settings, the border weight, make you black, and create. This is not working here on this. Where is it? Block shadow, maybe it's this. Oh, that's why. Keep you dark. I don't know why it's not showing up. Oh, outline width, it won't let me scroll to it, that's why. For the outline width here, we're gonna go like this. We're gonna select the illustration, move it behind, not behind the background, front of the background. I'm just going to lock you. So I've locked the white element here, or that off white, and now we've got the border width here. We're going to make this border black. And we're going to go into the effects and make that border black. And then, come on, scroll down here. Nope, not on angle. Make our width a little bigger. So now you can see that it's over top of the design, but it still makes it legible, right? It kind of, contains itself a bit. And then obscure, the word obscure by definition doesn't need to be also obscure, if that makes sense, right? So it doesn't need to be looking extra out there. I would probably just make this, if anything, curved to hug the design, so it feels like it's not trying to be an extra part of the design, but make it part of the design more, like, so it surrounds it, like it frames it. So we could change this to arch, reset transform, move you over here, get you looking a little more normal here. Let's swing these around. You know what? I might just delete this, and then let's go with text here and just throw that on top. Make the text color solid white so we can see it.
Someone's asking, will the black outline print on the black shirt?
On a black shirt, it may, but I was going to show you that you can definitely delete this. And I know Tony knows or has used Photoshop before, but I'll figure out a way to delete that that black outline so you guys will be able to do this in Canva or Kittl. Let's just make you bigger here. We got that. Get you centered. Go obscure. And the font here is cat, whatever that is. So we'll use this and we'll go to here, pick you. Let's make you, bring you in here. Wow, this is really fighting me with the zoom on here. Make you nice and big here. So the obscurity is part of the focus, right? So I would make it bigger, but without making it kind of impede the design in any way. The design itself is already obscure. So I would kind of do the same here and then give yourself that block there. So what I did, just going to pull up Photoshop. I did a previous version. Downloads. Where I showed where it just had the outline before I changed the obscure, but this is what I would do for the obscure, just keep it kind of there. The font itself is already ornamental enough, so we don't want to do anything crazy to it. It needs to be easy to read and a little more inclusive. If you wanted to, you could always add a curve here, where I would probably do it the other way, right? So it's more, it kind of frames the design that way. But you could probably get away with just leaving it as is. So I've got the downloaded PNG in Photoshop here, and I just wanted to show you all you would need to do is use your magic wand tool, select the black, and then hit delete. And now it's deleted the black around. So if we had another layer underneath, for example, that was, let's say, on a black shirt, and I can paint bucket the background here, well, the foreground. So it ultimately it's showing the color of the shirt through, right? So you'd be able to see that there And it would change. So if you did a dark navy or a heather gray, you would see the heather gray through it. So hope that makes sense. I'll definitely send this link to you so you can check that out and use it for yourself. I'll complete the design there. Next we had Amy, and she's
Okay.
dropped this before. Yep. Sorry.
We're at noon, and I'm just letting people know that if they need to drop off, we're still recording, and then you can decide how long you want to go.
For sure, for sure. Definitely want to respect your time. Thanks, Sheila, for drawing attention to that. Going to get through these for sure. I got 3 more that I wanted to touch on. Feel free to drop off. Don't feel obligated to stay. It's not weird or awkward or rude. If you got to go do your stuff, you got to go do your stuff, right? We all have lives to live. So this is going to be recorded, so no harm, no foul. So that said, Amy had dropped in Heartbeat that you had gotten some ad spend on it, right? So it's my most liked, favorited ad spend, $90 in ad spend, only 2 shirts sold. You had one in there that I noticed you posted yesterday, the day before, that you had like 125 favorites on it or something in like a month or 2. That is really good. There's a couple add to carts, but nobody's buying it, right? And I suggested something in there that if it's not the design, it could be because it's conflicting with other things in your shop, right? And thankfully you added your Etsy shop link here. So I'm just going to pop that up on screen. So if we look in the editor here, your designs, these look really cool. These look really cool, really well done, right? So I'm not going to touch on anything on design. They look good. As far as tarot card goes, you got the, the elements here. Well done on the designs. They look cool. You even got some like faded stuff. You got the more like eccentric here, and then you got more of the traditional older style, older school looking. So we're
Can
in
I
your
jump
shop.
in quick?
Sorry,
I
yeah.
just, when I looked at this, the sun on the bottom, it looks like it's only partway there.
This?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that, for me, it looked funny. I mean, I know it's AI, but it just kind of was like, I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out, is that wrong? Is it smeared? Does it look
Yep, you're absolutely right.
odd or what? And so I'm thinking that might be one of the things that people are seeing.
For sure.
You
That can
could,
definitely be part of the problem here.
you could get another sun and, and overlay that possibly, or fix that issue.
Yeah, that's because this is the particular one too. So maybe they zoomed in and they noticed that. I didn't notice that. So good catch, Sheila. That's the one thing about using AI is you're definitely going to have to, go in and look really closely at your designs. Like, what does that say up here? Is that supposed to be a certain letter, right? It's a little off. So you might want to just even remove this and just have the 8 if that looks like, at least it would look intentional, right? So you go in and edit it. You've got a cool looking star here, but this one's a little off. So those are the things that people are definitely zooming in at and maybe noticing. Your stars here turn into little blobs of mush. So yeah, these ones look great. They look pretty cool. I don't know if that's like a dragon bird type thing, but it looks intentional at least. And then this one looks really good with the waves and stuff, and you kind of got like what looks to be maybe a seahorse or something. So some of them turn out great, but others definitely have some issues that you're going to want to address, right? But I do like the look of this here, like the vintage idea. But this is something you can easily cut out and paste over here, right? So not all is lost that way, but good call there. So then I was looking at this and assuming the sun was good here. It's like, okay, so you got 20 views in the last 24 hours. It's on fire. People are looking at it. But what's going on, right? So aside from the design, what's going on in the shop, right? The banner, I would add something now that you know a little bit more about text and contrast and hierarchy. Do something here that draws, that's more bold. You don't need to have as much type. Don't when I say we hope you find exactly what you're looking for, tell people you have what they're looking for, right? Words like hope when you're in sales is kind of plants almost a seed of doubt, even though it's inspiring, if that makes sense. So that said, anyway, not a shop review here, but just looking at what's going on in the shop, you've got a couple of designs, LGBTQ friendly. You've got a lot of them that way, right? And then I noticed one in here that was 4B, didn't know what that meant. And it's a movement, a feminist movement that came out of China, I think, or Korea, North Korea, where it was about not being married in the traditional sense, not being with a male, not having children with a male, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got that coupled with full-time golfer, a very dad-centric, and a dad venture begins. And I looked at a couple of these listings, and they're kind of conflicting with the messaging that you're trying to put out there, right? So either you're going to be, this the 4B kind of support, along with being an ally with the LGBT community, and then you've got things that are very patriarchal about being a dad and having kids, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but they're together are completely different customers, and they're completely conflicting, right? So if somebody who wants to be seen and heard for their orientation, for the way they live their lives and how they identify, and they're looking to make sure that you are the right person to buy from, it's very much in the same vein as culturally appropriating, so like selling a bunch of Juneteenth stuff when you are not part of that niche, or you're not on the front lines as an activist celebrating the emancipation. If you're not part of that community, then people are going to see through it, and you may not make any sales because of that, right? So I feel like you don't know who you're targeting yet in terms of an ideal customer. You've got a lot of traction, you said, with favorites and ads, and the ads could definitely be why it's not working, because you're now, like I said, you're spending on the clicks, you're getting the clicks, and it's not selling. So there's something wrong with the design here. And we saw a few examples of what could be wrong with the design. So go through over those with a fine-tooth comb, but then look at who you're targeting here, because you're sending very mixed messages, right? It's almost the same as putting all Democratic stuff in your shop or all Republican stuff in your shop. But as soon as you add both, like, they're very polarizing opposites. So as soon as you add both, you'll lose credibility with either group. You'll lose credibility altogether, and then no one's going to buy, right? Contrary to what a lot of gurus will tell you out there in YouTube land, is that Etsy is a search engine. Nobody's looking at your shop. I have proven that to not be true. Stacy and I both have multiple repeat customers. They're coming back to the same shop because of the branding, because of the messaging, and because of the design, right? All in the same vein, we're serving the exact same customer. So I hope that makes sense. There's a lot of things to look at there, and it's not just the design. Any questions on that one?
Nope, we're good.
We're good. All right, so I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna close that. Hope that makes sense. And then moving on to Kelly Roberts here. We got homework suggestions. She said something I tried the other day for merch. I don't know how long to wait until it's a dud listing. So I had some suggestions, like, do you have access? What tier are you in? Blah, blah, blah. And I made a couple of suggestions, but when I was looking at this again, like, I'm looking at the 4 of these here. I think this was the one you dropped initially. Just zoom in a bit here. This was the one you dropped initially, but then looking at this one, speaks to me in terms of the font choice, because when I hear Proud Mom, right, I got, some scripty type thing here. It makes sense to me, but when I see mom here, this is very collegiate, institutional. It's a slab serif font like that. Is very like boom in your face. It doesn't have, for me, the nurturing vibes that Proud Mom would necessarily, have. Like, you want to be bold and proud and nurturing, right? You're so proud, and the mom and residency and Proud Mom here, I feel like they're you're getting kind of mixed messages. They're clean, and the readability is there for sure, but I don't know if this would be the right choice. I would do something maybe a little more organic, but still sans serif, something that's a little, you know, softer, ultimately more nurturing, right? This, you don't need to have a stethoscope there, tongue twister, for the sake of having it there. If you did, I might move it, you know, like I said, down here, make this a little bigger. Maybe we can make proud. On an angle here, do this really quick. Proud here, something like that. Nothing too much because the word itself is already, or you know what, even, let's just go rise, but bring this down a bit and bring you down a bit. Actually, let's get rid of that. We can just, like I was saying before, move that over. And the hard part with Kittle is like the spacing again, right? So when you're using a font like this, the P should be bigger and lower. And that was something I said as well. So, and you couldn't figure that out. I'll tell you why, because it doesn't always work in the same text box. So this is another thing. When you're using script fonts, you're definitely going to want to use 2 text boxes. And I'll show you exactly what I mean here. And that's because in Kittle, you don't have the ability to edit the text. So normally it's here. You don't have the ability to edit individual letters within a text box. So it was like this. You can see here, it's kind of like, it seems too high and a little weird that way. So I would make it a little bit bigger and maybe bring it in kind of like that. So it looks more natural, if that makes sense, right? Maybe a little smaller here. But you see how it's bigger than the rest and it's past the baseline. So if this was the bottom line of your font, you want this to extend a little lower, right? Now it just feels way more natural. So click on that, Command G to group those. And now we can kind of move this a bit, maybe curve a little less of an angle. Mom, I might do, let's look for something a little softer. Let's go sans serif. Django might work. And it might be a little too bold here, but yeah, I don't like that one. And it is a process, right? There's no one and done sometimes, and take your time. That could work. I almost would make proud the bold and this a little, you know, more fun that way. Yeah, that might, yeah, no. I kind of like that a little bit better. But it's and if there's a way we can maybe, you know, I don't know. I feel like the stethoscope is just there to almost as an afterthought, right? It just, yeah, maybe something like that. So your eyes drawn to it a little bit more. The proud here, I would probably use colors more vibrant. So I'm guessing this was intended to be gold, but when it's printed, especially on black, it definitely doesn't look necessarily gold. I would probably go with a color choice that's a little more fun, like pride. I think blues, I think yellows, you know, and you don't have to necessarily do anything other than white also, right? Maybe, yeah, maybe a little bit yellow that way, I think would look kind of cool. Select these, make them the same yellow. And then graduate here, same idea. So you can see the G doesn't look natural. It doesn't, like when you have a script font that's horizontally in perfect kind of alignment, it just doesn't feel natural, right? So the first thing we're going to do is do this, Command X to cut to you. I'm going to hold, I'll bring you in a bit, and I'm going to hold Option and drag, which is the same as right clicking and then copy paste. You can just hold Option to drag and I'll Command V to paste my G. And then we'll just close this text box a bit. So it pasted right on the line, right? So you can see here that it's the same as this one now, but we want to make it a little bit bigger and bring it a little further down. You can see that already looks, now it's lined up with the top of this letter. You can see how it kind of tells you with the dotted line, that blue dotted line there. So it lines up with the top of the D. Just find it again. There it is. Move you a little to the left here. And then I'll shift click so we can select both, and then Command G to group, which again is group and ungroup are Command plus G here, which would be, I believe, Control on a PC. And then the same kind of thing. I would probably tilt it a little so it just feels more natural, right? And then we'll bring that here, and you can tell we're lined up with your little blue lines. Sometimes it doesn't always line up right, but you can just do it visually here. And I think that looks a lot more fun already. We can even take this over top of the E here, if you really wanted. And we can even take this and do copy and then paste. And we'll do the same thing here. So we're over top. I'm just going to make you black. And then we're going to send it to the back via layers here. And then we can, I'll have to ungroup it, looks like. So I'm going to lock you so I don't touch you. And then we will ungroup. And then with this, we can add a border weight here. So I'm going to add the black again and make you a little bit bigger. If it doesn't show up there, then we can always just add an effect. Same idea. Color will be black. The outline width will be a little bit bigger. You can see it kind of showing up on top of the black there, and that actually looks pretty good. And we don't have to do it on the G because it's not touching, and we've got kind of the same space here. So I'll just zoom in on this a little. Now you can see we've kind of got that outline right over top and over the stars. It looks way more cohesive, and I would change these fonts also to match this this particular font here. So Chango, I'll just do this really quick and then we'll move on to the next. So multiple fonts here, Chango, I think we'll do that. And then we'll obviously have to make sure that it all fits, right? So we can try probably 300. Good guess, looks good. Make sure that spacing is accurate, like we said before. And yeah, so this, we're losing some of the word here. So we'll just make you a
Oh, good.
little,
Kelly
pardon?
said, "This is awesome. Thank you so much."
Oh, you're so very welcome. So now I just want to make sure, because we had one here that was locked. So yeah, make sure to unlock. I can select it. And then well, maybe it wants me to do that in there. And just take all of you, move you down a bit so that that is still over the E. So you can kind of see now that the mom of a residency, I might even get rid of this entirely. I don't like the way it's looking there, but we can definitely take this, move you down a bit. You can see how that P kind of fits into that M now. It looks a little, more intentional, right? And it looks a little more friendlier than maybe this looks like it's a little off to the side here. We definitely want to make sure everything's centered properly, but you can see how it's way less rigid than this over here, right? It's more inviting, a slight angle. We didn't do a whole heck of a lot here, spent 10, 15 minutes on it, and it's a completely different design. I might even close the gap on some of the spacing here so we can take you up. Yeah. Let's make you go down actually. That'll be a little easier. And then I'll just drag this, bring you down a bit, tighten up that spacing a bit so nothing looks awkward or, the weight's distributed evenly. And it's the same design, it just looks totally different, right? So I hope that helps. Moving on now, we've got Emily had Fueled by Coffee and Goldens. I don't know if this is what you wanted to share with me. If there was I can't edit this, so I'm just going to tell you what I would do. I would use the same font here. Like, it doesn't look like you completed this, and it's definitely going to not you know, it's going to be like this wide on a shirt, right? And this tall, if you can fit it in there. I would move this up underneath here and put fueled by in the same font as this over top. Again, we talked about the curving with Tony's design. Frame the imagery, right? So you would have the curved font and then the dog's face and then coffee and goldens. You could even have probably starting like right over the fur. It doesn't have to be underneath it. It can be right here, coffee, and then and goldens or however you have it. But you can overlap with the dark on the light here and you won't have much of an issue at all. And I think that'll look good.
Yeah, be sure to pop into the announcements channel and watch the little video on how to share your links so that he can get into them.
Yes, yes. And Stacy's saying that separate listings, yeah. So she'll duplicate the same design, switch out the main photo so you can use different dog breeds, right? Pretty quickly. And I wouldn't say go and do 40 or 50 of them because your customer doesn't want to see the same, you know, design, like the retro sunset with world's greatest doctor, and then husband, wife, dentist. You don't need to. People call those scale designs, but it's really just trashy, right? Like the customer doesn't want to see 100 versions. And honestly, if you're targeting the healthcare profession, then you wouldn't have necessarily teacher in there, or you wouldn't have lawyer in there, right? You would keep it niched for sure, and that'll kind of mitigate how many options you have anyway. That way, another important reason to niche. The next one was Linda's. And we were looking at this, and I did suggest to make the font white here. And this is kind of what I was saying about things competing for attention here. So yes, the white stands out. I like that better than what you had before. I'm just going to zoom in here, but there's still, I feel like, too much going on. So what is the purpose of having the sunset here other than, you know, it just being a popular item, right? Is there a reason to have that there? Because I feel like this design could probably do well on its own without the sunset.
Linda, do you want to unmute?
Sure, I put it there to go with the retro.
So for the assignment, Jay.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. Yeah, that's right. That said, this font alone is already retro.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you probably picked it for that reason, right? So too much of one thing can also be not a good thing, right? Like they can compete that way too. So retro font, retro sunset, but they don't necessarily, in my opinion, look good together. So an easy win here is just get rid of that. Let's bring these in a bit so I can edit a little easier. I'm gonna make the text here. Oh, it looks like we might have a space over there. Yep. Okay. The cat is cool, but it doesn't really fit the vibe of the letters. So I would maybe come over here and retro 70s cat, maybe. And maybe we could pick, see what we have for options here. Maybe psychedelic. And see what it spits out. I've never used Canva AI before, so we'll see what happens here. We'll keep it as square and see what happens. Maybe we'll get lucky. If not, I would look for a cat design that has a little less, like if we look at the elements here, you know, there's a little more definition. There's more brush strokes. It's not as peace and lovey, groovy, you know, bold, right, as it could be here. So see what our magic media. Okay, yeah, wow. So it's pulling out all kinds of stuff. So I would probably, you know, try to tweak that, but we can also see what we have for cats.
I have a question. Do they have clipping masks like in Kittle that you could just do the vintage sunset clipping mask for the letters, the color of the letters?
There is a way to do that. I don't know offhand how to. I'll have to. I even have a video on clipping masks in Kittle, but it's definitely not a program that I use often for clipping masks. So I'll have to figure that out. But yeah, you could definitely do that and make the basically a rainbow effect inside the letters, right? Is that what you're getting at, Stace? That could make sense. I worry about it being too busy, but you'd have to definitely try. And if there's nothing else competing around it, it might look good. So I think a cat that might look a little bit better with this design here could be this guy. It's a little more retro-y.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a few here for sure, right? Even this has, it's kind of cute though. I kind of like these faces here. Even this could do the trick, or these cats. Peace, love, cats. So here we go. Let's get rid of you because it is plural. This cat to me doesn't fit the design. These definitely make sense because you have the word cats plural.
Mhm.
I would probably do something like that. We want to look at the letter spacing, bring you in a bit more, maybe a little tighter, and then bring this up a bit. Peace, love, cats. I think that could work there. I would make this kind of more uniform to fit the size of the design. And with peace, if you wanted to add, all these extra elements, I would leave them off in terms of like compared to some of the other stuff you had. Like there was a lot going on in some of them, and it's just your eye doesn't know. It's all about that balance and that hierarchy, right? So not only with fonts but with design elements, your eye doesn't really know where to travel. It's kind of just a lot going on. You look almost directly at the cat sometimes when you want to be able to read the shirt too. So in this case, I could maybe do something like this, or maybe as a period down here. If we could maybe move this over and have this something here, or maybe just a singular one, right? Just a cat paw as a period instead, or I'll lose it there. But otherwise, you could also potentially put it, let's go layers here. Yeah, the keyboard shortcuts. I use so many programs. I'm doing keyboard shortcuts. It works in one and not in the other. It's a lot to keep straight. Yeah, you might be able to, you know what? I would probably just go cat paw here. We don't need, oh, there's one. You'll have to make sure that might be a dog, right? So cat paw. Oftentimes less is more. So I don't know my cat paws, but we're going to say that's a cat paw. Then I can show you exactly what I mean here. Move you over a bit. Make this a little smaller. You could have it kind of like that. There's a little pyramid period here. Could do something like that, or you could even put it on top here as the counter in the A. Just an accent like that. It doesn't have to be everywhere, all over the place, but you can do little things in there to kind of throw the paw in there, right? Or even on the S, small, but it definitely doesn't want to be something that is in the way at all. I might even put it here, and then we'll just zoom in. I can't Command plus on here. Same idea. I would probably put maybe a stroke around it or something so that it shows up, around. Same idea as we were doing with the font stuff. Yeah, but you definitely don't need to add it just for the sake of adding it. So if we look right now, this, because it's white fill on the letters, if we change, I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way. So you've got our retro design, you got cats that kind of look more the part, I think. Maybe make that a little bit bigger because it's okay to overlap. And then we can make the background here. You know, if it was on a black shirt, the white shows up. If it's on a red shirt, the white shows up, right? You obviously want to make sure you're using complementary colors. You could do anything on the spectrum here and just keep changing. And it's legible on almost every color, right? As soon as you get into the white lettering like that. So that's kind of the idea. Always make sure it looks good on black, because even if it's not the first image, black is always the most sold shirt. And then the only other thing I might do is lessen the stroke
Outline.
weight. Pardon?
The outline, yeah, got it.
Yeah, the outline. You got it. Lessen that a little bit.
Okay,
But completely different design. I think it looks a lot better than in terms of readability and knowing where to follow than something like this, right? It's a little more intentional, but it's also a lot easier to read, right? Hope that helps.
thank you.
And you're very welcome. And you're absolutely, I'm not saying don't list your stuff, but try, test and see, right? I have a feeling this one would probably sell if it was a cat niche shop faster than this one, is what I'm getting at. So I hope that makes sense. And then there was one more I wanted to do here. And then I did have, yeah, I'm gonna try my best to go through a couple more a little later, but I do have to jump off shortly. So this is going to be Sarah Little's here. 71 views, 11 favorites. I've turned off ads. The keywords seem to work for people to find it. Okay, again, same thing, but something's not working, right? So it's not being, it's not getting conversions, it's not selling. So we're just going to, oops, zoom in here so we can see it. So right away, I'm seeing an issue with the contrast. So you've got very, assuming this is intended to be a black shirt, that's why the background's black. Which is always good to do. If you're going to design for a black background, make sure that you start with a black background so you don't screw up any elements later. I would probably make the elements in here higher contrast. So right away, we're going to go white. You've also got distressing on very low contrast elements. So it's already hard enough to kind of decipher a little bit from a distance. And then you add distressing to it, it makes it, and it's a gritty kind of design, it makes it a lot harder to read, right? So as soon as you add more contrast, it becomes a lot more evident immediately. Something like this, I would probably give it a white border. So we'll just do that. Instantly jumps off now so that you can have this be whatever color you want. You could even have it full black and you'll be able to see it. And if this one, for example, if you made this full black, it still works on black, but you lose the black, right? Like you lose the kind of outline. So if you wanted to keep it as a different color, you can always, come on, Command Z here. Well, it doesn't like me. So let's go back to that. The only other thing I would probably do now is we got this weird here. So let's finish this first. So let's make you a little wider, say 60 or so. Yeah, I will do the same here. So border weight, make you white here and 60, make that uniform. And now, sure, it looks awkward with this kind of over top, right? So I would take this one and probably bring it to the front. So layers, scroll down here, and all you have to do, it highlights the layer. You can see it's kind of shaded there. You can just drag it over top. And now it puts it in front and it looks, you know, and then you can move around this stuff here to cover up some of the elements. So I might do something like what you had there. And then I might Command C, Command V, paste another one that you can kind of junk up over here. So that looks a little more intentional now. You know, you still got the muddiness there, but you can definitely see the dogs a mile away. I might even make these guys black, to be honest. But that said, you can also knock this out so that, well, for example, let's just do that. Oh no, it doesn't show because it's on a background. You can also come on, command Z here. Wow, it doesn't like me. Hopefully we didn't lose that. Okay, so black. I would knock this out and make it the color of the shirt. So how I showed you the black now, you know, you kind of lose it, but if you have the white outline, you can delete all the black in here. So whatever color shirt you put it on, so if it's navy, the dogs will be navy. If it's red, the dogs will be red, right? So the negative space becomes whatever part of the artboard is. I think that would look pretty cool. And then the same thing here, you've got the gritty font here. I'd probably drag that in behind. It looks like there might be, yeah, there is an outline here. So I would increase the border weight, make it the same color, increase the border weight to match throughout. All right.
Kelly mentioned a little disconnect between the number of dogs and you can't pet her. So it would either can't
Right,
pet
and you
them
did
or
have
one
them.
dog.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So in this case, you can't pet her. We can just do that, right? Why won't you? But yeah, you can always do something like that too, right? I don't know why it doesn't let me undo. Oh, there we go. But yeah, now we have to reduce this border weight just so it all matches. But you can definitely move something up like that. You can have some of the grit. I would probably put this in front. Just drag it up on top. There you go. Something along that line, right? So no, you can't pet. This would be, you know, obviously appropriate for the them one, right? But you've got instant pop. It stands out a lot better. It's easier to see from a mile away, and you're not going to run into any risking any issues that you could be that risky with the printing process, right? I might even, to be honest, get rid of the border. Just make the text white. Or maybe put a black border like we had before, right? So white text, border, maybe black a little bit. Border weight, make you black.
Tommy suggested using "You Can't Pet Me" and put it on a dog shirt.
Smart. Yeah, a shirt for dogs or a handkerchief or whatever they have. Any of the pet things. No, you can't pet me, right? It's great. Smart. But yeah, you can see that kind of outline there, and you can knock out that outline so that if it's a red shirt, the red would show through, right? Yeah, I don't know if there was a reason behind this red. Is it supposed to be blood on here? Yes, I mean it looks angry, right? The dogs look angry. So maybe, you know, they're already, I guess there's a stigma with it looks like Dobies here, that you may want to not reinforce with like a blood red font or something. The messaging is there, right? It's the emotions that it kind of invokes. But yeah, otherwise you definitely at least want to make sure that you're not, you know, making this stuff, for example, the same red, right? Because then it looks like blood spatter, and that's going to do the opposite of removing or mitigating the stigma of the breed. But just wanted to get through that one too, and then you can see that, you know, it's got a lot more readability now. It's visible from far, and the contrast is there. I am going to go and do Brian's on the side. He had a design here. I'll just pull that up.
Okay.
I'll do that one. It's loading. I'll drag this over here. You guys can see it here. I do all my own stunts. I'll do a little bit of a critique and design on that, but after the fact. So thank you for joining the call today. I do have to stop sharing for today, and we'll have to get some other things done. But thank you guys. There's 41 of you still here. Wow, that's amazing. Hope that helped. Made a lot of sense. Okay, great, Brian. No hurry on yours. Perfect. Do we have any questions about any of this stuff? Feel free if you
Thank
got to bounce, drop off, no pressure. Do we
Yeah,
have?
I think you're good. I just had a few quick announcements.
Sure, great.
So just, I will put up the homework assignment after we end the call. And for those who got hat seats, you are invited to post your redesign in the before and after thread, and that's in the announcements channel. And the topic of the next call is going to be mindset. There's only 2 questions right now, so make sure you get your questions in. Thank you for being here and participating and putting yourselves out there with designs and questions. And be sure to fill out the feedback for the event before or at the end. Thank you.
And I love doing this stuff. I just got to say, whoever's still there, because this transcends platforms. This is not Etsy exclusive. This is not Amazon merch exclusive. This is wherever you're going to put these designs, right? I'm teaching you guys how to make designs that, you know, I think there's a pretty good chance they'll sell, right? So I hope this helps. I hope you guys get as much value as I have fun doing them. It's that awesome for me. So thank you very much. And thanks, Sheila and Stacy, for helping out with everything.
Bye, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. End meeting for